Sorry, I just missed it. Karen Wester. Great. Karen Wester. So Karen Wester teaches technology and special education. She wears all sorts of different hats, does kind of everything. So she has lots of things to share about digital citizenship, but just in general for STEM, for coding, for literally, I bet, everything, because she does so much. So I'll let Karen take the lead and talk a little bit more about what she does and let us know a little bit more about her.
So I teach technology K to 6, but K to 4, I have them for class, 5th and 6th grade. It's kind of integrated. I'm a help resource for teachers, as well as media, a library media specialist and special education. So I'm in class support with one class usually, although we don't know what this year is going to look like. And then I'm also with a multiply disabled nonverbal class and work with technology integration with them and media. So that's a very different range of skill sets. And I'm privileged to work in a very small school in Warren County, New Jersey. So I get to see, hands-on with all of my kids and watch them grow up. And, it's a great place to be a teacher. For digital citizenship, I've been teaching digital citizenship formally probably for the past 10 years. Before that, I didn't have a name for it. It's really been in recent years that we've kind of given it an official name. I definitely work on privacy and internet safety. I talk about just keeping yourself secure, and particularly with all the social media, really watching your digital footprint and watching what you're posting online. Common Sense Media has some great lessons for the K to 2, well, really K to 6 and up, but I use the K to 2 digital footprint lesson where they follow an animal's tracks and they talk about what animal is leaving more information, and they get an understanding of how you leave information with everything that you do. We talk about keeping your pictures private and not posting your image until you're an adult, because we don't want people knowing what you look like or knowing what baseball team you're on or knowing how to find you. I use NetSmart Kids resources as well. And code.org now has embedded Common Sense Media lessons. So I integrate the Common Sense Media with the code.org platform as well. And then for coding wise, I've done some Scratch. I've really opted more for code.org the past few years, just because it really fits with the combination of student-led student independent instruction and paired programming, which I love, and then unplugged lessons. So there's a great continuity of lessons and resources for the teacher. And it's great if you're just starting out. I'm not a coding expert by any means. I'm a Jill of all trades, and I like learning and finding new things to help my students and teachers really improve and widen their skill set. But I'm not an expert. And I think students knowing that you're willing to learn and that you're always learning new things and bringing new things back to the classroom to share with them helps excite them and keep them engaged.
Definitely.
And your classroom teachers too, as you provide materials for them.
Yeah, it's so great to always model what a good learner is supposed to be, so your students will be able to take you as a model and emulate that in their own learning. So yeah, I always tell every teacher that I meet that yes, you don't need to be a coder because you're not a coder, okay? We understand that, but everyone can learn how to code, and as long as you're willing to learn, your students will be willing to learn, and we'll all help each other. And this doesn't apply to just coding, it applies to really any subject, whether it's gardening or cooking or whatever. But in my case, my passion is coding, so I always push for the coding side. So yeah, so today we're going to learn about the remix feature, because I think it's really cool to create a template that students can use and jumpstart their writing or their coding. So in this case, I made a couple pages of just a simple digital citizenship story focusing on privacy, because I do think privacy is like one of the biggest challenges that we face, not just as students, but even as adults, and understanding what privacy means and when you put your stuff out there, it's not private anymore, whether you say it's private or not. Once it's on the internet, it's on the internet. And that's a concept that's really hard for people to understand, because we tend to think that, like, for example, if I give you a picture, you probably would be like, okay, like, there's a chance that they might give that picture to someone else. But for some reason, when it comes to the internet, we just think the internet is some grand, majestic thing that has no flaws, and it will never give away what you tell it not to give away. But obviously that's incorrect, because we've had previous instances in which things that were supposed to be private become public, or because you shared online, then obviously even if you retract and say it's private afterward, it's already online. So then it's public forever. And it's really, really challenging, even when I talk to adults, let alone kids who maybe can barely tie their shoelaces, to understand that they shouldn't fully, put out their things online when they see so many others doing that already. So it's a really important topic, and people can spend forever on this topic, but today I just want to focus on not putting our names out online, specifically our full names and our pictures. And to do that, we're going to look at Alice in Internet Land. So to remix, Karen's going to scroll down a little bit, and she's going to find a button called Remix. So right above. So a remix basically copies this template so that you can use it, modify it, change it up. And once you publish it, it automatically credits and notifies the original source. So you can also tie in some digital citizenship concepts of, crediting and attributing to your sources. When you publish any story on Elementari, it automatically credits and notifies all the artists that have contributed to your work. So Alice in Internet Land, I made some pages. I already locked some of those pages, so you cannot edit them. So Karen can try to click on things, and it's kind of hard to move things around because they're locked. So this is one way that you could just make it easier for the kiddos to figure out what to do. And we're just going to go to let's start at page 1 first. So Alice in Internet Land, and it's a remixable template. And we can go to page 2. Where we have a very basic scenario, but this happens all the time. One day Alice was playing a video game. This can be, Fortnite, that's popular nowadays, or Rocket League if you're an old guy or a young kid. I mean, both of them like it. And she's invited to play a game with someone from her previous match, because oftentimes when you play online, you can invite other people to play with you if you liked playing with them as a team, which is pretty cool. So Alice says sure, and we're going to go to the 3rd page. So now the thing is our teammate, Alice's new teammate, sends her a new message. And oftentimes on video game platforms, you can send messages either through the all chat, privately, voice chat. These are all methods that people can communicate with each other as long as you play online, especially when it comes to computer games in particular. So it's like, hi, my name is Susan Cooper. What's your name? So Alice doesn't really know what to do. And I assume probably this sort of template would be used after you've already done like one of those lessons that Karen already talked about from Common Sense Media that kind of already explains what the difference between private and public means, and already classifies what private and public is. So what we're trying to do now is to really get the students to demonstrate their understanding by writing a story. And of course, this can align with your writing standards, English language arts standards, things like that at the same time. So we're going to go to page 4, and now you have a little bit of body text. So here, you can click in to the text. Yep. And now you can edit it just like, you can make it bigger, you can change the font, and now this is editable. So you can now edit it and type in what your answer is.
trying to bring it down. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So this becomes like kind of like a digital worksheet. Students can go through it. And since this is really about coding, now let's try to actually code something to make this a little bit cooler. So what you can do is there's a lot of options, and Karen's going to decide what she kind of wants to do on this page. You can add a voiceover to, say what you just typed, or you can add some extra information. Maybe you want to, make things fade in. Maybe you want to add a background music. Maybe you want to add a little person talking and customize that person so it looks kind of like you. What do you want to do?
Can we add a person saying, or a voiceover with a person kind of saying what we just wrote?
So there is no text to speech. You have to give your own voiceover.
Okay.
So you want to give your own voiceover?
Sure.
Okay, great. So you're going to click on the Sounds tab now and click on Record Voiceover. Okay, so you're going to allow your microphone access. Great, so click on the gray circle. You'll have a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then you can talk.
Privacy means keeping your information safe. Your full name, address, birthday, school, and phone number are all private information. You should always be sure to check with your parents before you give any information to anyone. Make sure you're safe and secure. Follow the digital safe rules.
Great, so you can preview it if you want, and then you can add, So you're not sharing your sound, so we can't hear it, but I'm assuming you can hear it.
I'm not sharing my sound?
Yeah, I think you're just screen sharing without sharing the sound. So it's fine. Or you can go into your Zoom and then...
There you go.
Okay.
Privacy means keeping your information safe. Your full name, address, birthday, school, and phone number are all private information. So then, is this a short sentence or a long statement?
Okay. For some reason, my Zoom just disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. I'm so confused. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. Whew. Great. So
where do
yes?
I have the sound now. Where does it go?
Oh, perfect question. So you've added it to the page, but you haven't told it when it's going to play. So to do that, we have to code it to play. And so that's where the coding comes in.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the Event Graph tab. So at the top, you have a little button, Event Graph. Above.
Oh, right above where it says Event Graph.
Yeah, so great. Now you're at the Event Graph. Now this is a place where you can code. You'll code using blocks, but they'll look different from Scratch or code.org, what you're familiar with. So we're going to take a look at what the blocks look like, but you'll notice that all of the vocabulary is still the same. So we have events that tell us when we're going to do something. So then we have our functions that tell us what action we're going to do, and we're going to have our objects. So in this case, we don't care too much about our objects. We're not doing anything with them. So go to the event and try clicking on the event and see when you want the sound to play. Great. So we're going to want to play on page start. Yeah, so you want to have a delay of 3 seconds. That's cool. Let's go to now functions. And now you're going to scroll down. And you're going to find play record sound. Okay, great. So now you have your two blocks together. And we need to connect them in order to make them kind of work. Right now they're just on the page. So let's see if you can figure it out without me saying anything.
Do I need a logic?
No, you don't need logic. Logic is for conditionals or gates, so we're not dealing with those at all.
Right, right.
So you just want to connect the on-page start block to the play record sound block. So you don't need any other blocks. You just need the two blocks on your page. Yep, that's it. So it's a little challenging, but
what else do I need to connect them?
So try dragging something.
Does it snap?
It doesn't snap. Try dragging the triangle. Okay, now try previewing. There's a preview button at the top right-hand corner.
Privacy means keeping your information safe. Your full name, address, birthday, school, and phone number are all private information. You should always be sure to check with your parents before you give any information to anyone. Make sure you're safe and secure. Follow the digital safe rules.
And great, you just coded your first lines of code on Elementari. So
I like the way it's very intuitive to do the graph. And if I was thinking about your terminology when you called it a graph, I would have made that connection.
No problem.
But I was so looking for the way to snap the blocks together like a scratch or a code. So
yeah. So that's kind of.
And I think it's.
Yeah.
I think it's very valuable for students to know that there's more than one way to code, so that going forward, when they expose to things like Python or CSS or HTML or other forms of coding, that are stepped up, that they realize that there's different languages and different actions for coding.
Yeah,
the principles are the same.
That's really great that you mentioned these other languages, because I want to kind of let go of this myth that visual coding is just for babies. So the event graph that you see, it's actually called node-based visual programming. And we don't see this in K-12, I don't know why, but we do see it in professional software, which is very interesting. So the primary software I always refer to is Unreal Engine. And you probably don't really know what Unreal Engine is, but Unreal Engine has created the games such as Fortnite, Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake. They literally make hundreds of games, and they're probably one of the top, if not the top, game development engine out there for professional use. So like you as an individual, independent game designer, game developer, you can go and download Unreal Engine and you can try and play around with it. They have made their software free for people to use, so that's really cool of them. And another one that I like to always refer to for visual programming is flowcharts, which is something that we don't think of as coding, but it really is coding at the very bare bone. So as a developer, I don't go and start on the keyboard typing JavaScript like that. You don't do that. The first thing you do is always you lay out your logic of what you want the code to do. The language almost doesn't matter. Like what you're going to do with the language, you'll figure it out, whether it's Python or JavaScript, or nowadays everyone uses frameworks. So nobody really codes in pure Python anymore, pure JavaScript anymore, because we found ways to make our lives just easier. And why would you do things from basics when you could just make our lives easier, make a website look good in less time, right? So there are frameworks for that. And the last software I just discovered is called think it's called Massive. And I never knew about it before until I was watching some, I don't know, French YouTuber or something talking about the animations in Lord of the Rings. And when you looked at how they did the animations for those massive scenes where they have thousands of, people fighting in the great humongous battle, that's all done with computer animations. And they used a block-based like node visual programming language where you connect the blocks together like just how we did, to create the animations and set the animations for those scenes. And it was just really cool because I was like, hey, that looks kind of similar to what we do. So that was really cool. And I was like, yeah, they did it for Lord of the Rings, and they also did it for, what's the other one called? The one that's super big on HBO. The TV series.
Thrones?
Yeah, Game of Thrones. They also use the same software for the Game of Thrones ginormous battle scenes as well.
Nicole, can you tell me the name again of the software for Fortnite? Kids would love to know what that was.
It's called Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, okay.
Yes, and they also have something called an event graph in Unreal Engine. So we kind of stole their vocabulary, and we also call it an event graph to do the coding. So if you type Unreal Engine event graph, you'll see that there are blocks and you can code them together, and it's a professional software and it uses visual coding. So coding is not about how many languages you can say hello world in. It's really about how deep you can dive into actually creating something that is really awesome, right? Like coding takes time. Creating a project takes time, like a really good one. And that's kind of what I want kids to kind of do, to iterate and improve on their personal projects. And I think storytelling is a great way because everyone has a story. So, and it appeals also hopefully to students who might be kind of, they think coding is for nerds, or for maybe it's not for them because they're not a math person or a computer person or a robot person. And don't worry, I wasn't a robot person either. So, but now I'm coding. So yeah. Anyway, I once again took over and just jabbered again. I'm trying to hold myself back, but it's really hard for me. So yeah, Karen, I don't know if you have any questions at this time, but we can continue coding and discovering more.
Let's discover a little more. That's really cool. What are the triangles, the nodes that you're connecting? What are they called? Do they have a name?
Well, I mean, they're just called nodes.
Okay.
So they're just called nodes because they're just the nodes, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that was the terminology I was going to use, but I was like, maybe they have a special name.
No, they're just called nodes. And also like the other, yeah, you have basically most game development engines have some sort of node-based visual programming environment. Unreal Engine has one that's built in, and Unity also has one, but that's separate. It's not built into the actual game development engine. It's a third party, but people seem to use it quite a lot as well. So it's just that we have this misconception that, like block-based coding is for babies. Real coders use JavaScript and they learn what syntax is. And I mean, syntax is important, but just like how nowadays we have, autocorrect for our grammar whenever we type essays, we have the same thing when we code. So it's not like the top priority of coders, or how to be a good developer. So yeah. Anyway, let's exit out. So you click on the little X orange thing and it'll exit out of the preview. And in order to make the screen a little bit bigger for your code, you can click on you got it. So that makes it full screen, makes it easier to just have more blocks on the page. It's helpful if you're working on iPad because the screen is just so small for iPad. And I don't know, maybe you want to do like a text effect, or maybe you want to fade something in. There's a lot of options. So
is there a way that you can make the pages turn automatically by adding code?
Yeah, you can do that. So you can make like a video. Yeah, definitely. So you can say, after I play this recorded sound, I want to go to the next page, right?
Right.
So how you can do that is you go to Functions, Then you go to page. Yep, that block. And since we're doing it in sequence, so then you could teach your kids, okay, you're going to code stuff in sequence. I don't know what page you're on, so you might have to.
I don't know what page that was.
Oh, you're on page 4 because page 4, it doesn't exist on there. So yeah, go to page 5. So if you want it to come after your recorded sound, try to figure out what to do.
Well, we've already played the record sound here.
Yep.
So I think I don't need another event. I think I just connect it. Right? Okay.
Awesome. So, yep. You totally got it right. So you just now sequenced functions together. And that's how our sequencing works. So, yeah, you can sequence functions in Elementary, and you can also play functions in parallel. So this is a sequence. You do one after the other. Parallel would be you do it at the same time. We could maybe try that a little later. But yeah, you could just exit out and try to preview it and then see how it works. So you want to click on
I'm trying to figure out how to exit out now.
Yeah, click on the full screen thing again to exit out full screen. And then you don't have to go to layout design. You could just click on the preview button. Okay, so you're on the page 5. Just swipe to the right, I guess. Or no, the other way. Yeah, try to go to the previous page. That's the next page, previous page.
I know what you're saying. I just couldn't make it do it.
Yeah. So.
Privacy means keeping your information safe. Your full name, address, birthday, school, and phone number are all private information. You should always be sure to check with your parents before you give any information to anyone. Make sure you're safe and secure.
And I meant to say
follow
digital
the digital
citizen, and I
rules.
said digital code or something.
And there you go. So it automatically flipped the page.
So if I wanted to make this a read aloud book for students where the text, oh, you already have it as read aloud, don't you? Do you?
So it already.
No, I would have to code,
Mm-hmm.
right? The voiceover.
Yes. For every page that you want the voiceover to be. And you can set it so after, you can also put a wait so it doesn't flip automatically. You can say like play the recording, wait 3 seconds, and then flip the page. And then you can make kind of like a movie, I guess, in that sense. So it's a auto-playing book.
So if I want to type my text here, why is it not letting me type?
So you're in
What am I
the
doing?
preview mode, so you can't
Okay.
edit it. You have to exit out of the preview mode. Yep, and then you can, great. So you don't have to actually highlight it. You could just type directly as well when you add it to the page. Great. So you can resize the speech bubble. Yep. And you can also make it wider so it's not as narrow. Yeah.
Much better. So that's very intuitive, the way you have the text box and the sizing. That's very intuitive.
Yeah. And basically then you can just set it up so you can maybe fade in the speech bubble after the voiceover plays. You could do things like that as well.
Now, I would almost have to print this out ahead of time so I know what I'm recording if I wanted to record it word for word.
No, because
Right.
because when you click on the record button, the recording thing goes to the top, so you should be able to read directly from the slide.
But do I need to go to the event graph to do that?
No. When we recorded
Oh, just sounds.
Yeah, you just go to sounds, record voiceover. Yep.
Alice thought about her lessons on being a good digital citizen and thought to herself, I need a different name that isn't my own. Alice thought about her lessons on being a good digital citizen and thought to herself, I need a different name that isn't my own. Okay, so now I want to go to the event graph, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play the sound. On page start. Delay 3 seconds. Am I in the wrong spot?
I think you just passed it. Go down a little. That's sound effect.
Sound effect?
Not quite sound effect.
Play record sound. And then I want it to go to the next page after it plays. So I would do another event, right? No, another function. That could fade. Oh, what about the text? Can the text fade?
Mm-hmm. So you could do a couple things with the text. You can give it a fade effect, or you can also give it a typewriter effect. So it fades in each letter one by one.
Okay. So let's try that. Do I have enough room on my screen for this?
Oh, I think it's fine.
And do I select the text, or it's already selected because it's the only text on the page?
So you would have to select which text is going to play the text effect. And you have a couple texts. You have the speech bubble text and you have the regular text. So in order to select the object, you need to go to the Object tab. Great.
Does it snap in?
So it's not like a Scratch. You have to drag the nodes to each other. Yeah.
And then I want to go to the next page.
Oh no.
I think I lost it.
You can also click on it if you don't have to drag it. Oh, go up. You just missed it. Yeah, up, right there. You can click on it. Yeah, so you don't have to drag it. It's a little bit easier if you're on a
I like that.
laptop. Okay.
And can you set a delay for when it goes?
So you can put a wait function to create a delay between any functions. So I think it's at the bottom, if I recall. Or yeah, you're right. You're right. You just no, you were right. I see it right there.
Trying my new trick of clicking.
So you can select the line itself to delete it. Yeah, and then you could just press the trash can or use the keyboard delete. Or try clicking on the trash can at the top. Okay, great. So you might want to slide your canvas over a little bit or make it full screen, one or the other. So you can click on the event graph, like the grid, and you can move it. So you have a...
I can move the grid?
Yeah, you can move the grid. So click, yeah.
Like that?
Yeah. So then you have...
Even though I'm losing, it doesn't matter that you can't see it now?
It doesn't matter that you can't see it. It'll still run because it's on the page.
Okay.
So it's just because you only have so much space. But you can move the grid to...
Okay, so we have an event, several functions, and an object.
Yep.
Not so bad, right?
Yeah. So...
All right, so we want to go to preview, right?
Yeah, let's see what it does.
Alice thought about her lessons on being a good digital citizen and thought to herself, I need a different name that isn't my own.
Yay! Great. So maybe one thing that you might want to do is you might want to, let's say, fade or do the typewriting text to match when you're speaking. So
right.
You can do that by then, instead of sequencing your events, you can make them occur at the same time. So that's a little bit more, higher level, but we can do that. So to put functions in parallel to make them go at the same time, we need to connect. Let's see if you can kind of think it out. So we don't need any logic. We're just going to stick with the blocks we have. You have everything everything there. So
what my thought was to go, it doesn't do it. I wanted to connect it like it was parallel.
Almost. So first get rid of your or block because it might be covering something important.
Where did the or come from?
I think you clicked on it accidentally. And
okay.
Yeah, when you were in the logic tab. So let's move over the canvas. Yeah, so the event graph. So you can see the on-page start. So let's think out what we're going to try to do. So on page start, what do we want to occur first?
We want it to delay 3 seconds before we start playing the text, but I want to play the text and play the sound at the same time.
Okay, so we want to play the text and play the sound at the same time. So let's see how we can maybe do that. Let's try to bring the play text effect underneath the play record sound block. So yeah, just bring it underneath. So for visual purposes, it'll be a little bit easier. Now I want you to select the triangle on play record sound. Okay, so where can we connect it to? Try looking for the enlarged ones. Yeah.
Enlarged ones.
So select it first. Select the triangle on the start. Yeah, so you see some things become bigger. Those are the ones that we can connect to. If they don't become bigger, we can't connect to them. Okay, now try to do the same thing with the start triangle on the play text effect. And there you go.
Okay, so that was cool. How do you describe that to a student?
So Basically, when I usually do this with animate your name, because oftentimes when you do animate your name, you want to do like, I want to rotate and scale it at the same time because I can. So typically when we do animate your name, it was like, okay, well, we can first rotate and then we can scale. But what if we want to do the functions at the same time? Well, what we need to know is that, first of all, everything starts with an event. So event is going to be like our centerpiece. And we're going to look from the triangle of the event to see where we're going to go next. So we're going to go from the triangle to the other triangle. Kind of like think of it as an arrow. So going left to right, where are we going to go? We're going to go to, in this case, we're going to go to 2 places. We're going to go to play, record sound, and play text effect at the same time. Now, you'll notice that play, record sound still has, cascading, still has a sequence. So then after play, record sound finishes, then we're still going to continue our sequence that way. So you can do pretty complex animations, or in this case, voiceover and text.
Would you say something like it's dual node, or it's a parallel?
So
it's a parallel event,
yeah,
right?
So in computer science, we normally say parallel. It's a parallel, like you're executing things in parallel, or you're executing things concurrently is another thing, another terminology that we use, or multi-threading, but that's a little bit, we don't go there. So I try to ask a lot of friends what they would recommend as the key term, and parallel seem to have the most votes. So I stuck with parallel. And this is rather new because, in Scratch or in code, like basically what we call Blockly, which is what Scratch, Code.org, Tinker, they're all built on this thing basically called Blockly. And in there, you can't really do that because it's very sequential. So instead, you would have to have multiple on-page starts and then try to sequence it and try to put like weights in order to make them kind of align to each other. That makes making dialogue a little bit challenging, I think. So because what you can do that's pretty fun that I like is you can have a play text effect, so like a fade in at the same time that you're doing a recorded sound. And then after you finish that, you can have another play record sound with another text effect at the same time. And you won't have to bother with using weights. You can still use weights, but it's just, you don't have to. So you don't have to keep counting the seconds of how long you should wait before an animation occurs. You could just kind of sequence them as it goes. So, yeah. I hope this kind of gives you a good overview of things. I don't know if you have any questions at this time. And I'm going to see
No, it's really cool. I want to see if it works.
Okay, yeah, try it out. See if it works. In this case, we'll check it out.
Unfortunately, you have to hear me speak again.
No problem.
Alice thought about her lessons on being a good digital citizen and thought to herself, I need a different name that isn't my own.
Great. So you can add a weight then, so that way it matches and it fits perfectly. What I would always recommend is instead of doing one long recording, you split up your recordings. So that way you can have more flexibility on how you want things to enter and end. So that way instead of one, play voiceover, you can have 2 play voiceovers. And then once the first one finishes, then you just need to connect the play text effect and the next play voiceover together, if that kind of makes sense. So it's a lot of information, I know.
So if you were starting with a kindergarten, first grade, an elementary IO, where would you start?
So first of all, does the kindergartner know how to read? Because that, I think, is the biggest barrier.
Okay, so let's move to students who can read. So let's say middle of first grade, second grade, early readers.
Okay, great. So exit out of the little, exit out of the preview. And you'll notice that we have a tutorial button. So it's purple at the bottom with the question mark, purple. Yeah, there. So when you create an account and you sign up first and you start your first story, you're going to be met with a how to animate tutorial. So it takes 3 blocks: on page start, animate, and a dragon. And you connect those together, you select the animation, and it animates. And it goes step by step through the process. So they can only click on what is clickable. They can't really click anywhere else. It's very, very, very guided. So that would be probably the first step to introducing them to Elementary, at least the coding side. We have seen students just use Elementary for just, creating picture books, creating, anything from an About Me book to something about like a hidden picture book. Those are all like common things that we've seen kindergartners do that. And it doesn't necessarily need to do anything with coding. And if the teacher is, interested in coding, then she can help the students code by having them, walk her through the process. They don't need to necessarily know how to read, but at least if they can record their own voices, like if you're there synchronously with them, you can help them record their story. They have lots of opinions about what their story should be, and you can record it. And then the teacher can help them, learn how to play it. Be like, okay, so when are we going to play this sound? Are we going to play it on page start? Or are we going to play it when, I don't know, the character is clicked, for example? And those are what I call audio picture books. So I think I'll be doing an audio picture book on Monday. I have a kindergarten teacher who does storytelling, and she already does storytelling with coding already, so she's really into that. And so we'll probably do audio picture books then to see kind of how she can kind of use it in her pre-K toddler age group, which will be really fun. But
well, I have to see that. I'll have to tune in.
Yeah. And so second grade is really good though, because they can already kind of figure things out. They have a play record sound tutorial as well. So once they figure that out, they go kind of crazy with that and add their own voiceovers to things.
I can picture it now.
And it's pretty collaborative, because when you create a story, you can have different dialogues. You can invite your friend over to be to do the voiceover of a certain character, or have your little brother come in to be another character. So it's just really fun, the recorded sound option. And I would say like more of the upper level coding concepts, like how to use a text variable. So variables, those are probably like, 4th grade, I would say, depending upon always their previous coding experience. I always come at it with, they have 0 coding experience. They don't know anything about coding, because most of the teachers that use Elementary are English language arts teachers, and they don't even know really what code.org is, aside from maybe they heard of the name and they know of it, but they'd never actually tried it out before. So they're taking it from a very, a storytelling aspect of it. And I always tell them, the kids figure it out. They'll figure out how to play a recorded sound or how to play a background music, and then they'll teach each other, and they'll be super excited. And you as the teacher will be like, I don't know what's going on, but it seems like it's good.
How would you scale it to 5th and 6th grade?
So 5th and 6th grade, you can already do, so 5th and 6th grade really likes choose your own adventure stories. So that's a really great option, is doing choose your own adventure stories. And those just use the go to page block. Most of the time it's pretty, simplistic. You have some that are more interesting, because we have like, you can drag things over a page. But really this can be scaled all the way up to college level. We have this being used in a continuing education sort of course. So it's like for adults in new media and narratives or something, studies. I don't really exactly know the title of the course. I should. But so it can be scaled all the way up, because really it's about how creative you can be about it. And the coding can get kind of complicated. If you really wanted to spend the time, you can do things like like an RPG, where maybe you have like a random number for, your stat of strength. And then depending upon if you are able to defeat this monster, then your strength stat will go up. And only if your strength stat is, bigger than this, then this event happens. Those are all possibilities. But of course, like that's much, much later. And that does require a foundation of coding that I think most people don't have quite yet. Even if you're saying you're a high school student who's done code.org, oftentimes they haven't really taken the fundamentals and kind of ingrained them into their understanding. So if you ask them what a variable is, they might not really know, even though they've kind of gone through the course already. So it's important to just like focus on the fundamentals, I think, and just the logical process and creating a product at the end. I think that's the biggest thing. So I don't know. Do you have any ideas of how you kind of want to introduce it into your classes, or what kind of projects?
I'm thinking, I was noticing it looks like you can create classes with Google Classroom on Elementari.io, and I hadn't realized that at first. I thought at first I was limited to just 30 students. Can you create classes on Google, like with Elementari onto Google Classroom?
So
can you import your classes?
You can import your classes. 30 students is for the free tier. So we have the free tier, and then we're working on changing our educator plan to be kind of 2 plans. So currently our educator plan is 90, but then we had a lot of middle school students who say, well, middle school teachers that are like, well, I teach more than 90. I'm an English teacher and I teach like, I don't know, 120.
Yeah, I teach 220 students. So I would be limited.
Yeah. So for individual teachers though, we're doing, I think a 35 student kind of educator light, and then 150 for the other one. Otherwise, we do kind of try to get the whole school to get on board with it, and with that we have like discounted pricing for the whole school, because I really want the whole school to be on board, because it's just really sad if like a couple kids are left out, because they can share it, and it's not something that has to be done in the instructional sphere. It could be done at home because it is digital. It's not like, oh, I have to be in class in order to do it. You can do it whenever and write whenever. And it's really trying to engage kids to write and code outside of school as a fun activity, not as homework, things like that. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's great, Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. And, I feel like I have to dig in and explore some more. I have more summer homework. This is the year of summer homework.
So much summer homework. Yeah, it's a challenge for teachers everywhere right now, and schools everywhere, with the uncertainty of everything, with everything that's going on. Do you know if you're going back full remote or blended?
I know we have a little bit of everything. So we're going hybrid Monday through Friday, early dismissal schedule, so 4 hours of instruction. Then they ride the bus, go home, have lunch. And then from 1:30 to 3:30, we're supposed to be virtual online. And I'm not sure how that's going to look. Because if I was a student and I just wore my mask for 4 hours and rode the bus and got home and had lunch, I don't know if I'd be getting back on the computer right away to do work. So I don't know how we're going to engage the students and get them motivated to participate from 1:30 to 3:30 online. And I don't know what it looks like for me, whether I'm going to be virtual with the students or whether I'm going to be in one class for a part of the day and then another. The concern is that special teachers like myself would be a super spreader. If you go from one class to the next class and you have a contaminant, you would be spreading it to everyone. So we're trying to avoid that. And then our students also, we're in New Jersey, so the students also have the option of being fully remote. So who's going to teach those students who are remote? Are they part of the class, or are they in a different class? Is it asynchronous? Is it synchronous? That's all things that we don't know. August 17th, I find out my schedule.
Well, try not to think about it too much.
Yeah, fat chance.
Yeah, for sure. I was listening into one of my professors from MIT, when he used to teach now he teaches at Harvard for the educational thing. They did a 40 teacher survey recently, just about around the country, about kind of like what their districts are doing and what they're trying to make distance learning to be, because oftentimes what we see is we're seeing a translation of, regular school and trying to kind of emulate that online, and doesn't work. And that's fine, like especially previously, because it was just kind of an emergency situation where nobody knew what anything was happening. But some of the schools were doing something kind of interesting that I thought was they were taking so instead of going to period 1, which is math, period 2, which is science, and then English, and then whatever, they would group the subjects so that they had 8 weeks of seeing one teacher and then 8 weeks of seeing the next teacher. So instead of thinking of our schedule so much in the traditional sense, they try to think of their schedules in a more modulated, smaller circles sort of configuration, because it's also just another way, because as a teacher, if you're teaching online and you teach 60 kids, you just cannot connect with all of them. It's just physically and mentally impossible.
Spring was really, really hard. Really, really hard.
Yeah. So you can't come into the school year being that's what I'm going to do for a whole year now. So they're trying to find ways to just make it so it's a little bit, for the mental load to be okay, at least I'm with these kids, these 30 kids for, 8 weeks. And then I go to the next 30 kids for another 8 weeks. Then they can focus a lot more on the connections and the bonding. And I just thought that was really interesting. I don't remember where the report was, but it went through a whole bunch of stuff and just had some guidelines of what kind of schools should at least question when they're thinking about the reopening process, and what they should, kind of focus on to kind of understand how to best connect with their students and to help them engage in learning. Because let's face it, nobody likes learning on the screen. It sucks. Even as an adult. So imagine if you're a kid, you have so many options that you could be doing other than that. Why would you really want to be on a screen and just watch someone talk when you can't even be with your friends? It's tough. So these are all really big challenges, and we're going through a new change in education, which I think is pretty crazy. This huge paradigm shift, and we'll see how it goes. So it's an adventure.
It is an adventure every day, right?
Yeah, I just take things one day at a time. I'm okay, I got my schedule for, the next 3 days. We'll see what happens after that.
If you just keep growing and keep learning.
Definitely. And so thank you so much, Karen, for joining us. And I hope that you enjoyed, your time here. And thank you so much for just, time is limited and spending time with us. And yeah, for me, it's great because I get to meet people because I don't leave my house. And it was great connecting. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I believe tomorrow's episode is on maybe variables and stories. I don't really know quite too much. We are figuring out the details. Monday is on kindergarten, pre-K kindergarten stories, and I don't really quite remember the rest of the week, but it is on the Facebook event probably. I'll have an event on that. And also YouTube will always have a listing of what our next lives will be. So do check that out. And yeah, it's great. And signing out, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.